So you want to start keeping a scorpion, or you want to get involved in the scorpion keeping community or the hobby itself, but you don't know where to start, or like what specimens to choose, which one is the recommended specimens for beginners, or what environment setup that suits the best for these particular specimens, or what's the husbandry like? Fear not, in this video we will cover our top 5 best beginner species scorpions, as well as their husbandry, their requirements. Have no fear, this video will definitely answer all those questions right after a word from our sponsor. Coppertist is an online store that promotes the preservation of natural wildlife by creating and providing beautiful and unique jewelry such as rings, pendants, earrings, keychains, and other amazing accessories. Their mission has always been to showcase the beauty of wildlife through the unique art with sustainability in mind by using safe metals, power-saving techniques, and minimal packaging in order to keep their carbon footprint at the lowest level possible. All the jewelry made are formed by taking the essence of the animal and implementing them into wonderful arts. Snakes, spiders, fish, and many more. They even have a wonderful hermit crab bottle opener. As a bartender myself, I find that really catchy. They have reached out to us in Inverts Paradise to deliver and showcase their wonderful scorpion tail pendant, which looks amazing by the way. It comes in different materials, optional chains for your needs. Use the code ISP15 at the checkout to get 15% off any products that are available in coppertist.wu website. Link to the website is down in the description below. Thank you Coppertist for sponsoring this video. Alright, so in number 5 we have the Scorpiomaurus. The Scorpiomaurus is a species of North African and Middle Eastern scorpion, also known as the large claw scorpion or the Israeli gold claw scorpion. There are many subspecies of this scorpion, 19 which are described actually, so that's a lot to keep in mind. So Scorpiomaurus is one of the subspecies of the entire genus. So in terms of the husbandry for this particular specimen, or this species in general, is that they like to burrow. Hence why it's in the number 5 position, because they require more of a height-based enclosure, where almost 3/4 of the entire enclosure is just dedicated specifically to aid the scorpion in burrowing. Which means in captivity, the scorpion will often be the happiest if the bottom layer of the entire substrate has a bit of dampness in it. Therefore, it produces a little bit of humidity required by the Scorpiomaurus. And as well, it acts as a cooling den for the scorpion. Alright, so this is gonna be a very brief setup for a Scorpiomaurus enclosure. So as I mentioned before, this is gonna be, so this is basically just gonna be like a rough setup, and this is just gonna be an example small, reduction in size enclosure, but you can always follow it based on the size of your scorpion that you're provided. So let's get on with it. So as I mentioned, we're going to need a height-based enclosure for the Scorpiomaurus. Of course, you do need to give it a little bit more space, so you need to balance it out. So we're going to start off with a little about, if this was a larger enclosure, I would say about half an inch or to an inch worth of tropical substrate, which means it does contain humidity and dampness. So we're gonna compact it down. So this would be the base for your Scorpiomaurus enclosure. This will be the base substrate. Alright, so for the remainder of the entire enclosure, we will be using our version of excavation clay. Although depending on which country you're from, you can always use your type of excavation clay. So you're gonna fill up all like about 3/4 through. Alright, so overall it should have an overall setup like this. So the first inch or so of substrate would be a tropical damp and wet substrate. Not wet, you can make it damp. And then the remainder, like 3/4, I would normally fill it up till here. So that would be your dry base substrate. Excavated clay mixed with sand. The ones that we have here is completely different. So yeah, varies from country to country. And for overall setup, you can always have a hide. You can't go wrong with a hide. And then always remember, for Scorpiomaurus, you want to give it a starter burrow so that it knows that it's going to burrow in that under the hide. And it's basically, you know, more of to assist it in excavating. And then a water dish at the side. What I would normally do for, you know, to please the aesthetic eye, I would normally just add in a little bit of dry grass and sphagnum moss combo. Although the addition of leaf litter would be a great, great addition as well. It's not compulsory, but it would make a great addition. So overall, this is how it would look from the top view. And then there's the starter burrow, and that's the substrate layout. And that's the best way to describe how to set up a Scorpiomaurus enclosure. Also, this is to ease up on your maintenance for the scorpion. So what I would normally do is I would jam a straw in one of the corners all the way down to the wet substrate, and then cut off the straw as I was saying, and then we will cut off the straw at this section here. Why don't you cut? There we go. So that the whole purpose of this straw here is to enable you to drip water all the way down to your cocoa fiber or your tropical substrate, the damp substrate, so that the damp substrate will remain damp. The upper levels where the dry substrate is will remain dry. Therefore, it suits it kind of mimics the natural environment of the Scorpiomaurus. So yeah, this is the basic setup for the Scorpiomaurus. Now, in terms of size, this is actually a small scorpion. The largest recorded to be about 4 inches or so, if I was not mistaken. But then in captivity, they tend to grow smaller than those in the wild. So they're about 3 inches to 3.5 inches if they're females. 3.5 inches is the max size for females. And once they grow to the adult size, or let's say they're sub-adult size, they'll start to show the characteristics of their brown and black golden claws. So that would actually be one of the more beautiful yellow colored scorpions with the golden colored carapace. Although, depending on which species you get within the Scorpio genus, I wouldn't specifically say Scorpiomaurus would be the best. You can get any other Scorpio species. The husbandry are very similar to one another, but the color may differ from species to species. In terms of venom potency, the Scorpiomaurus has a very mild venom. Even though it does contain a weak neurotoxin, it is basically incapable of severely damaging a human in a way. It doesn't damage, unless of course you're allergic to stings, so then that's a different story. But there have been no recorded fatalities due to the Scorpiomaurus due to its weak venom. So there is nothing to fear in terms of venom potency. In terms of temperament, this is the one reason why I love the species. They are feisty. They do not hesitate to turn around and fight. They want to fight you. They will fight you. They will not hesitate to pinch and sting at the same time. But you know, it's like, you can't be mad at them because they're just so small. They're just small and cute. So you really can't get mad at them, even though if they do end up stinging you. So you can't really tell them to fuck off. because they're just that cute. So in conclusion, the Scorpiomarus would be a great beginner species, although there are some caveats to it, especially a slightly more intimidating husbandry. But you know, with respect and with time and dedication to take care of this particular species or genus, basically the Scorpio genus, you will get, it is a rewarding experience where you get to learn how to rehouse them, how to set up the enclosure. It's a very important thing to have the learning process. So the Scorpiomarus does give you the baseline on how to maintain your discipline in doing your research, as well as, you know, maintaining the environment and enclosure for this scorpion. Hence why I would personally rank it number 5 in the list, because it does train you as an individual, as a beginner in this scorpion hobby. So in number 4, we have the Mesobutus martensi. Also known as the Chinese scorpion, the Manchurian scorpion, or the armor-tailed scorpion. This scorpion, despite its common name, is not only found in Manchuria or China, it is also been reported to be found in Korea and Mongolia. So in terms of husbandry, this species is a relatively dry species. Normally in the natural habitat of this scorpion, it is basically dry most of the seasons with barely any vegetation. So basically a dry enclosure setup would be more than enough. So this is how I would personally recommend in setting up the enclosure for a Mesobutus martensi. As for the Mesobutus martensi's enclosure setup, we are going to be focusing mostly on dry substrate. So there will be no tropical substrate included because it is a dry species. Yet again, keep in mind that the size of your scorpion specimen may vary. So adjust based on the size of the enclosure. You need to adjust it based on the size of your specimen. And so normally people will just be, alright, so sand substrate, a water dish, boom, done, that's it. Sorry, but if you do that, you're not doing a good job at all. It might survive the entire course of its lifetime in your care, but you're not doing it right. So what I would normally do to mimic the environment is to add in some dry clay, a layer of dry clay on top. And then I would always put in some cork bark so that it does have a bit of space to climb, because rarely, not to say rarely, most cases the Mesobutus martensi will prefer to hide under something or in something instead of burrowing down. Therefore, this would be perfect. This is more than enough for the Mesobutus martensi. But yet again, if you want the aesthetic look, why not go with the sphagnum moss on top to mimic the dry vegetation? And yes, that should be more than sufficient for the Mesobutus martensi. Nothing more, nothing less, this is perfect. The Mesobutus martensi's size really varies. Sometimes in captivity the specimens grow up to 7 centimeters, and then at times there's 7.5 to 8 centimeters. So depending on where you get your specimen from, the size may vary when it reaches adulthood. The females in the Mesobutus genus naturally are slightly larger than the males, so you'll be able to distinguish between the male and female. So they have a lifespan about 4 to 6 years. And with this size, it is not so intimidating for new beginners to enter or pick up the specimen. In terms of venom potency, the Mesobutus martensi has relatively mild venom. Despite of the way how it looks, it sometimes has the similarities and coloration to the Liurus quinquestriatus, also known as the deathstalker scorpion, and that one has the highest possible venom potency. Sure, you're not involved. In terms of temperament, the Mesobutus martensi is one of the more skittish specimens that is available in the hobby, or in this list basically in general, they would want to run away from you. They do not want to stand and fight like the Scorpiomoros. Hence, it would be considered a great opportunity for beginners to learn and adapt to the scorpion's behavior. So in conclusion, with that, we can safely say that the Mesobutus martensi can solidly take the number 4 spot due to its basic care, minimalistic size, it's not too big, it's not too small, as well as its mildly potent venom. Then with the added benefit that it looks quite similar to the Liurus quinquestriatus, so in a way it psychologically builds you up to slowly transition you from the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced species, at where you will land yourself with the Liurus genus. Hence, it will give you the motivation to push yourself to try out more and more species, to collect more scorpions in the hobby. It becomes a poison. Once you get addicted, you won't stop. Help me! So, up in the number 3 spot, we have the Shirellis vergatus. Also known as the Java dwarf scorpion, this particular scorpion can be found in the tropical rainforests of Southeast Asia, most commonly found in Indonesia, Borneo, and Myanmar. This would be the second dwarf species in this entire top 5 list. So in terms of husbandry, as the name suggests, it is a tropical species of scorpion, so it will require higher humidity. So with that, we will be going with coconut fiber or topsoil, or anything that you can mix together to form a tropical substrate for tropical scorpion. Alright, so for the Shirellis vergatus, since it is a dwarf scorpion, you don't need that much of a big space, but just so that they're able to crawl around a little bit more often, you can use a bit of a larger enclosure so that there's more floor space for it. So this will be the basic setup for a Shirellis vergatus. There. So more often than not, they do not burrow. The Shirellis vergatus does not burrow that much. They prefer just crawling around and scavenging or hunting on the forest floor. But they do like hiding under stuff. So first and foremost, to maintain the humidity, use a substrate that can retain humidity, such as cocoa peat, coconut fiber, topsoil, whatever mixture you can, in combination with whatever materials that you want to add in to help not only aid in humidity but also improve the overall mixture for the tropical setup substrate. So in this setup, we have the sphagnum moss that is to help in retaining the humidity, cork bark for the specimen to hide under, and the water dish. That's it. It's that simple. It's so easy. Can never go wrong. In terms of size, as the name suggests, it is a dwarf species. It will rarely exceed the 1.5 inch mark, so you don't have to worry in terms of size. It is a very good beginner species scorpion, mainly because of its tiny little cute size. It is small. It's just cute. In terms of venom potency, being a tropical forest type of scorpion, the venom potency does not at all come close to any of the desert species. So therefore, you can be assured, if you were to get stung by the C. vergatus, you do not need to panic or be in fear, because number one, because they're dwarf, so it is kind of hard for them to pierce through our skin, unless of course they sting at where your skin is the thinnest, so that would be more of an entry point for the stinger. Number two, forest scorpions rarely have very potent venom, unless of course, yet again, you as an individual have allergies to venom. So that would be a completely different story. And personally, in my opinion, after getting stung at a weak point where my skin was the thinnest, it's just mild irritation, like that tiny little irritating itch at the end of your finger, like you really want to scratch it, but then it's just, you gotta stop yourself from doing it, that kind of irritation. And it doesn't exceed more than 15 minutes. After that, it subsides and everything is back to normal. In terms of temperament, they will rarely want to fight back, unless somehow, some way you are able to piss it off that it needs to sting you. So temperament-wise, they are very passive, very, very passive. So in conclusion, with all that said, this is a small little small scorpion with a very passive temperament, as well as relatively mild, very low venom potency. What's not to like about it? What doesn't make it a great beginner species? Yes, the size might be tiny, might be, it's not my thing. But trust me, it's a rewarding experience to have it from a little tiny scorpling where, it's really irritating to feed the tiny little things, but once you grow with it, you'll slowly understand the process of why it is so good and so satisfying to keep scorpions. The process where it builds up your responsibilities and discipline in terms of taking care of your specimens, ensuring that the humidity levels is just right, it doesn't dry up and kill the scorpion. So that is why the Shirellis vergatus is in number 3. So coming down to our number 2 spot, we have the Heterometric species. Also known as the Asian forest scorpions or giant forest scorpions, the Heterometric genus has a relatively small number of species within it, estimated to be about 8 of them. With that, I'm going to include all the other species in this list because it all classifies under the Heterometric, hence the husbandry requirements is estimated to be about the same with one another. So in this list we are including the Logimanus, the Spinifer, the Pitersi, the Silenus, the Thorelli, and the Lauticus. I'm pretty sure I'm missing one or two or a couple more of them, but hey. So in terms of husbandry, so right up next we have the enclosure setup for the Asian forest scorpion, the Heterometric species. So this is relatively another basic setup, although not most, like majority of the time they do tend to burrow. So what I would normally advise other people when they want to keep the Heterometric genus is to, when they lay out the substrate, always have like a lower level and a higher elevation of substrate. So with that, you're able to observe whether or not the specimen tends to burrow, and even though if they do burrow, they can burrow the higher center of elevation of substrate. I always have the cockbuck as always, and then if they do tend to burrow, always do a starter burrow so that they are able to start off their burrowing journey from there. And then the water dish at the side, always remember to have the water dish full, never leave it empty. Sphagnum moss for retaining humidity. Other optional materials you can use is leaf litter that sometimes can help with the humidity, as well as give it a more aesthetic view. And also it complements the fact that it is an Asian forest scorpion. They do dwell on the forest floors, so the forest floors do have leaves, so it makes it more natural. So that's the Asian forest scorpion setup. In terms of size, the Heterometric is easily one of the top 3 largest scorpions available in the market, and also in the world actually. You'll be surprised. These specimens can go up to 6.5 inches in length from claw to tail, tip of the tail, from tip of the claw to the tip of the tail. And there have been cases in the wild, their lengths have exceeded almost 9.5 to 10 inches. So don't be surprised if you were to go hiking somewhere in the tropical rainforest of Southeast Asia, you see a giant ass scorpion that's just crossing the road or your path, because they can grow to that size. So with that, you're going to need a decently sized enclosure for these specimens. In terms of venom potency, the Heterometric genus normally have relatively mild venom levels. They most often prefer to crush their prey with their claws, purely by brute strength. Rarely will they actually use their tail to land the killing blow for their prey items. Their venom potency is considered low, like mildly low. So if you were to get stung, expect to get the initial pain due to the physical damage, the mechanical damage, as well as a little bit of swelling. That's the most that I have experienced. Hence, I would say it has relatively low venom level. In terms of temperament, so this is where there's a bit of a caveat for number 2 here. Asian forest scorpions, or the Heterometric genus, tend to be defensive and more reactive instead of passive to environmental changes or vibrations. You do keep that in mind when you want to purchase it as your beginner, and more often than not they would be slightly defensive until they start calming down, and then they will resume with their relatively passive nature. So in conclusion, despite the defensive attitude as well as being a tropical species, I would personally recommend the Heterometric genus as a beginner for a number of reasons. One, it trains you to always be aware of your specimen's personality. It takes time for you to understand the pets, whether they are defensive, passive, or aggressive. So always keep that in mind. Number 2, they are a tropical species, so it builds up the responsibility and discipline in the keeper themselves, always to ensure the humidity is up to spec, as well as ensuring that they do not dry out, because if they do dry out within a couple of hours or so, they can die. And also, not to forget, it is a rewarding scorpion to keep. If you purchase them as the size of scorpions, you get to grow with the scorpion, and once they grow to their maximum size, they make an excellent showcase piece, especially when you celebrate Halloween. You can just show it off to your friend. Hey, look at my giant black scorpion. And let's not forget, they have a shining black coat exterior. They look amazing. Hence why they're number 2. Alright, so before we head into our number 1 choice, I want you guys to head down to the comments and let me know, what do you think, or which species or genus do you think is in the number 1 spot? Don't cheat and skip forward and wait for the end of the video. That's cheating. I'm watching you. I can see you. Don't cheat. But yeah, comment down which species or genus of scorpions is in the number 1 section. And finally, we are here in the number 1 spot. We have the Pandanus imperator, or imperator, depending on how you pronounce it. The emperor scorpion is a species of scorpion native to the rainforests of the savannas in West Africa. It is one of the top 3 largest scorpions in the world and lives for about 8 to probably even 10 years of its entire lifespan. In terms of the husbandry, it is almost directly similar of that to the Asian forest scorpions. Because they are found in the rainforests of the savannas, you can expect a tropical setup. However, they are able to tolerate lower levels of humidity, as you know, savanna, they tend to be a bit drier than the usual tropical Southeast Asian rainforest. Typically a semi-damp, not full damp, but a semi-damp substrate. And for the Pandanus imperator, the emperor scorpion, it has almost the similar setup as the Heterometric species scorpions, with majority of the husbandry is the same. So there is really not much to explain. It's the same concept, elevating form of substrate from low to high, sphagnum moss for humidity retention, water dish always remains full, and also the cork bark, although because my particular specimens prefer dwelling on top, so I do not kind of force them into burrowing. So I more often than not will make a concave shape and let the scorpion rest under it. So yes, this is the Pandanus imperator setup. Yet again, you can always add in leaf litter to aid in humidity, as well as provide a little bit more of a natural setup. So yes, that is the Pandanus imperator setup. In terms of size, as stated with the Asian forest scorpion, the emperor scorpion is a relatively large scorpion. Large, black, with a red tip stinger. You can never go wrong with these guys. They grow big and they make amazing presentation specimens. There have been records of Pandanus imperators reaching up to 8.4 or 8.5 inches. So do not be surprised if yours actually touches the 7.5 to 8 inch mark. In terms of venom potency, they have one of the mildest venoms. It is basically on par, I would say, to the Java dwarf scorpion, the Shirellis vergatus. And let's not forget, they are highly reluctant to sting. Most of the times, how they hunt their prey is by crushing their prey items by brute strength. And most likely, if you were to actually be stung by the emperor scorpion, it will be mild irritation as well as slight swelling. Aside from that, there will be the lingering pain for about an hour and then it disappears completely. In terms of temperament, the Pandanus imperator is considered one of the most passive scorpions that I have in my collection. They are super passive, unless of course you don't feed them enough, which is for all scorpions. They tend to be more aggressive and want to eat more. So always remember to have a feeding schedule. Other than that, they will rarely attempt to go into a defensive posture. They would rather curl themselves up to go hide themselves or make them look as small as possible. So they have a very passive personality. Although, do not take my word for this, we do have some cases of psycho emperors. So we have some emperor scorpions that will go crazy if you were to even give them a slight blow or slight breeze of air. So in conclusion, what can I say? Is the emperor scorpion, the Pandanus imperator. You have the large size. It is a tropical species, so it does build up your discipline and responsibility in terms of taking care of a tropical species scorpion. Relatively easy to take care of. And let's not forget that it has relatively mild venom. So if you were to get stung, it's basically no need to panic unless yet again you're allergic to venom. And it's definitely a very rewarding species to keep. If you have this from Scorpling, you're going to enjoy every step of the way, every molt. You will have the feeling to keep each molt just to progress, to see the progress of their size growth. I can fully vouch the Inverts Paradise guarantee that you will have a great time keeping the Pandanus imperator. So with that, Pandanus imperator number 1. Alright ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this top 5 beginner species list. So if you guys have any family members or friends who are keen on joining this hobby or becoming a scorpion keeping hobbyist, but they don't know where to start, you guys can always share this video to them so that they do not have to undergo the massive hassle. So with that, you guys know the drill. If you guys enjoyed the video, smash that like button. Really helps us out in Inverts Paradise to, improve our algorithm in YouTube. YouTube is a really fickle mistress now. And for those who are new to the channel, welcome to Inverts Paradise. I hope you guys enjoyed this top 5 video, beginner species video. If you guys did and you guys want to see more, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that you'll always be updated with our latest uploads. And let's not forget, comment down below which of these specimens were your favorite beginner species, or did you guys start with any of these top 5 species that I recommend? Or you can even state down what you started out with. I'm really curious. I would really like to know my audience first scorpion. What were your first scorpions you guys kept? So with that, I would like to say thank you for watching. Inverts Paradise out.